This episode of Podcast Portugal is brought to you by Flow Sports. If you're into jiu-jitsu, wrestling, rugby, cycling, basketball, and many more sports, Flow Sports have you covered. Stream live events, watch exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and dive into a world of top-tier sports coverage, all on one app. Don't miss a moment. Tap the link in the show notes to start watching with Flow Sports today. This is Podcast Portugal with Justin West. In this powerful and inspiring episode of Podcast Portugal, we sit down with Eric Nation, creator of OperationNation.co. Eric shares his journey from his early days as a digital nomad and humanitarian traveler to his current mission, connecting people across cultures, borders, and beliefs.
Hey, Justin. Nice to meet you too, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Share a little bit about your journey, how you got here, how you got to Portugal, and all the different things that you do.
Yeah, my name is Eric Nation, and so OperationNation.co, that is the website for me and my wife's agency, digital agency that we started a few years back. And it's a digital agency. We specialize in building websites and software and also SEO and content strategy. My wife is a SEO specialist, so search engine optimization for those of you who aren't familiar with the acronym. So she does all the SEO and marketing stuff, and then I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been doing that for quite a while now, since 2012. So I do all the software development and building websites and whatnot. And so that's what Operation Nation is, and Nations Without Borders. That is like our personal family brand, kind of. We started this personal brand just back in 2024. So last year in August is when we launched our YouTube channel. So that's kind of like the foundation of it is our YouTube channel. And we I guess to take you back a little bit, I've been living a digital nomad lifestyle, or at least I used to, full time since 2016. So about 8-9 years now. And before I met my wife, she was also living that lifestyle. And her and we met back in 2019 when I was spending the summer in Amsterdam. I'm American, she's Dutch, and she was living in Bali at the time, but she went back to the Netherlands to visit her family for a couple months. And we met in Amsterdam on a dating app, and we dated for a couple months while she was there, and then I convinced her to come travel with me, and kind of the rest is history. She left Bali and she came with me to Costa Rica, and we traveled around for a bit and Central America, and then we were in Mexico, and that's when the pandemic happened. And so we were in Mexico City when the lockdown happened. We ended up being there for about 6 months or so, and then we got word that kind of businesses and things were starting to open up in Puerto Escondido, Mexico, over in the state of Oaxaca. And so we're like, all right, we're kind of beach people, nature. And we were like, all right, let's get the heck out of the city and let's go back to the beach. We heard they were starting to let people surf again. So we went and stayed in Puerto Escondido. And it wasn't my first time there, but we had gone back here and there. It was her first time there, and fell in love with it. And we ended up staying there for a couple years, and that's where I proposed, and we had our wedding in Mexico, and we loved it there. But after a couple years and after getting married, we knew we wanted to start a family, and her being from the Netherlands, I was perfectly happy starting a family in Mexico, I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, so Arizona borders Mexico. So I really love Mexican culture and the people and the food and everything. So I was happy to do it there, but she kind of wanted to be closer to her family in Europe. So we compromised, and I was like, all right, well, if we're going to move to Europe, I got to have warm weather. I got to have surf. That's a priority. And so the Netherlands wasn't quite cutting it, with the weather there and everything else. Not ideal for those conditions. And she wasn't really content on moving back to the Netherlands as well. She also, likes warm weather and all the things. So we did our homework, and I had invested some time, quite a bit of time in learning Spanish. So Spain was our first choice, but because it would just been easier with the language. But after researching how long it would have taken me to get a passport in Spain, it would have taken like 7 or 10 years, and that just wasn't doable. I wasn't willing to compromise on that. I was like, I would rather live in the Netherlands and get a passport in 4 years because we're married, rather than waiting 10 years in Spain. So Portugal was the next best option, thankfully and gratefully, because in Portugal, as you know, if you're here as a legal resident for 5 years, you can apply for a passport. So we were willing to wait a little bit longer and have that quality of life, warm weather, good food, waves, sunshine, all those things. So we decided on Portugal, and yeah, we moved here to Lisbon back in summer of 2022, and yeah, we're still here and we're very happy. Um, but to kind of circle back to Nations Without Borders, yeah, we started that YouTube channel back in August, and the reason we started it is because after we had our daughter, and she was, I think 8 months at the time, back in August of last year, we wanted to kind of revisit the digital nomad lifestyle and kind of experience what it would be like to travel around with a baby. And I used to make lots of travel videos on my personal YouTube channel, which I still do. Not all the time, but it's more like motorcycle videos lately. And so we're like, let's document this. It would kind of be like a family journal of sorts. Just document our journey, and that'll be cool for us to look back on someday and just see how it goes, and share that with the world, and kind of just personal diary slash try and provide some value to people and what it's like to travel and live that lifestyle with a young child and whatnot. So we did that, and that was 5 months of travel. And we did 1 month in Popoyo, Nicaragua, which, as I'm sure you know, is a great surf destination. The reason we chose that place is I have one of my best friends, Jerry, settled down there a couple years ago, him and his girlfriend, and they opened a co-working, co-living space focused on surf and just remote workers. So I don't know if you've ever been there, but the Wi-Fi and infrastructure there is pretty non-existent. It's a very, very small little town. And so they opened that up, and that was super cool. So we wanted to go check that out, support their business, and see what it was like, and also introduce them to our daughter. So we stayed there for a month, and that was absolutely amazing. And that was a great soft landing because, we have friends there, and they had the co-working, co-living, plus a house for us to stay at. So we had kind of a support system. So that was great. And then after Nicaragua, we went to Surf City area, like El Zonte over in El Salvador. Again, another like huge surf destination. And we have some friends there that Luke and Gabby. I met Luke over when I did Remote Year back in 2017. And he's also a surfer, and his girlfriend and now wife is El Salvadorian, and they had a baby who's around the same age as our daughter. So wanted to go visit them and spend some time with them and surf. And that was also amazing. It was our first time in that country, so it was great to see it. I was curious on, the whole safety aspect of El Salvador and how it's progressed over the past 5 years, because as you might know, it used to be like one of the murder capitals of the world. So it was cool to see the progression and how safe it is now and just get a feel for that. And then after El Salvador, we went back to Puerto Escondido, which we consider a second home base. And we spent a couple months there visiting all of our friends in the community we had there, and spent some time there, which was amazing. And after that, we went to Phoenix, Arizona for 1 month for the holidays. So all my family could meet our daughter, Nora. At the time, I think only my mom had come over to Portugal to meet her. So all of my siblings and everyone and all my aunts and uncles were like dying to meet her. So it was great to spend a month in Phoenix and hang out with everyone. And then we came back to Portugal.
How did when your mom came over to Portugal, how did she feel about it? Did she notice, did your mom travel a lot, and sort of what was her initial feelings about you guys living there?
That's a great question. She does not travel a lot. That was her first time leaving, going across the Atlantic and visiting Europe, and she's in her
Wow.
mid-60s now. So
Nice.
she does not travel a lot. Never was. She kind of probably limited by finances growing up the most. Could never really afford to travel growing up, and as a result, I didn't really do any traveling growing up either until like I was in my 30s, and as far as international travel.
So Eric, it's really interesting. Your mom is traveling for the first time to Portugal. How did she feel it? Did she get a sort of culture shock, or or has it inspired her to travel even more?
We spent half of the week in Lisbon, and I showed her around the sites. We took her on a sailboat on the river and did all those things. And then we also, for a couple of nights, went over to Algeciras. Uh,
Ah, yeah, yeah. I used to have a little house there.
Nice, amazing. Yeah, that place is beautiful. Surf
Hmm.
Erifana, and I have a friend there who's part owner of Nook, which is a co-working, co-living space. So we stayed there, and
Okay.
it was great. She loved it. It's completely different than the United States, and especially Phoenix, where I grew up. So I would ask her questions like, "What was like the craziest difference you noticed?" And she's like, "Well, everything's really condensed here. This the streets are very tiny. All the cars are small." And then I asked her about safety and the difference in that. She's like, "Yeah, it feels really safe here. Like I don't see a lot of homeless people too much, even though." Ironically, in our neighborhood, we live in Oroyosh, and there is actually a decent amount of homeless people in this neighborhood. But comparatively to Phoenix in the city, it's still reduced. So, but yeah, she's like, it's safer here, and she actually has a lot of food allergies too, and she noticed that she wasn't getting an upset stomach here, which is interesting. And I've heard that from my
Wow.
brother too. It's like they're able to eat certain foods here that they can't back in the US. So that was good to hear and validating. And
What type of foods particularly?
like my mom can't really eat cheeses or tomatoes or nightshades. Like she can't eat a lot of
Hmm.
stuff. She just has a lot of health issues when it comes to food. And my brother is lactose intolerant, but he could eat some of the cheeses here and stuff like that and not get upset stomach. So that that
Interesting.
that was interesting. But one funny story is that we were at the hotel over in Algeciras, and there was a French couple there. There was a swimming pool, and the French lady, took off her top to go for a dip, and then my mom was chilling at the pool, and I look over at her, and there's this like look on her face. She's like, "Well, you don't see that every day in America."
Yeah, that's a classic.
So I thought that was super funny. So just all these little differences, but yeah, she loved it, and my brother and my mom actually already bought tickets to come back and visit in September after we moved to Ericeira. So they're going to come back and visit. And um, so really excited about that she already wants to come back. And yeah,
Yeah.
so super stoked.
Actually, that really reminds me of a story. When I first moved to Portugal from Saudi Arabia, we lived in Algeciras, which was, well, actually, it wasn't quite Algeciras, it was Arifana, and a couple of friends of mine came, and it's quite an interesting story from their perspective because one of them is a prince of Yemen, and he's descended from Prophet Muhammad, and his cousin. His uncles basically they were at war together. One was anti-royalist Republican, and the other was part of the royal family. And in Yemen, they had a civil war, and his uncle killed the other uncle. But the nephews actually started a business together,
Oh, wow.
a public relations company in Saudi, and they came to visit me, and I took them down to the beach at Emorera to learn how to surf, and it was really, really super funny because just like your mom, they were looking around at some of the nudist sunbathers and the topless, and they were just like, "Yeah, you wouldn't have this in Saudi Arabia." So it's interesting. It's funny these different perspectives, and I think it's important. It's like a little message in there that when you travel, you're going to see things that you've never seen before, and some of it might be shocking when you relative to your own culture. But I think to look at it and to smile and to think, okay, that's interesting, that's different, and to have a little bit of a laugh, I think it says something about how we should be traveling. We shouldn't be coming. We should. I don't think we should become. Well, I don't know. Actually, maybe there is some things that we should probably disagree with, but yeah. And so, what got you
Yeah.
into traveling when you were 30?
It's a good question. So, uh, I guess let's see, where do I start? I mean, I had always wanted to travel. I always dreamed of like being able to travel abroad, but back when I was younger, was never really in the financial budget. If you live in the United States, it's more expensive to go travel internationally just because, you have to buy a plane ticket all the way across the Atlantic, unless you're going to Canada or Mexico, of course. But I don't know, as I got further along in my career and I started making a decent amount of money, that traveling became more of a realistic opportunity. So at that time in my life, I was in a motorcycle club for a lot of my 20s. I had left the motorcycle club, and then I had also got out of a long-term relationship. So I had suddenly stumbled upon all this like freedom to do and go where I wanted. And I came across, through some Googling and online research, the term digital nomad. So after that, I just went down the rabbit hole on the internet of researching this movement, this digital nomad scene, and what it was all about, and learned that it was possible for me to do that. As a software developer, web developer, like I could potentially go and work remotely wherever I wanted to. So I became kind of obsessed and fascinated over this lifestyle, and the fact that it was a potential option for me. So at the time, I was going into an office where I worked at, and I pitched the idea of going to work remotely in Costa Rica for a couple months. This was actually when I was, yeah, 30. And so I was just going to go to Costa Rica. I had already found a co-working, co-living space. It was close to Santa Teresa, which is a popular surf destination, and they agreed to it. So I went there for 2 months, and my whole goal was to go and learn there how to surf because I grew up skateboarding. I've been skateboarding since I was 12. Um, and yeah, I had the idea that I wanted to learn how to surf because
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot of similarities between culture and the act of skateboarding to surfing. So I went there for 2 months and it was amazing. It was like the best time of my life. I went there alone and it was just awesome. Like I rented a motorcycle for the whole time and I was just driving around the jungle and getting lost, going on all kinds of adventures and exploring. It was like magical. It was
Yeah.
everything I hoped it would be, and it went beyond my expectations. It really like opened my eyes to what was possible.
Yeah.
And
And
so
and the question is, did you get more work done or the same amount work done or less work? Was the company happy with you?
that's a good question. I think they were pretty happy with me. I was pretty determined to prove to them that I could still be productive. So I think I probably worked even harder,
Mm,
um, or smarter. I still got plenty of surfing and explored time in, but I got all my work done. And when I came back, they were happy with me and everything. And at the time, I had researched and discovered a program called Remote Year, which was like a travel program where you traveled around the world for a year. You went to a different country every month and you went with a group of people. So in our group, there was like 50 something people. But yeah, I applied for this group and I got accepted. And the itinerary they had was like amazing, the most amazing destinations around the world, Lisbon, Portugal being one of them. And that's how I came to discover Portugal. But I convinced my work to let me go for a whole nother year. I pitched the entire program to them, told them all about it. This program was designed for professionals that were able to keep a job and have their own income while traveling the world. In this program, Remote Year, they facilitated all of your flights, your accommodation, local events, like immersion events. You weren't just going there as a tourist. The idea was that you live there, you work remotely, and you really get to experience the local culture and city, as much as you can. Not and so I'm kind of like an extrovert. And so I liked the idea of having a group to go travel and share these experiences with rather than doing it alone. And just the itinerary they had was amazing. So I went for it in my job. I got them to approve it. So then, yeah, in 2017, I traveled around the world for a year and that just kind of changed my life and changed the trajectory of it and opened my eyes and my mind to like what traveling is all about and to all the different cultures and foods around the world. It was absolutely amazing. It was a game changer. And
mm.
then after that, it kind of just didn't stop. I went back home for a few months and then I had caught the bug by that point. I just knew that that lifestyle was possible and I didn't want it to stop. So there was nothing really keeping me back home. And so I just left again and continued to live kind of the quote unquote digital nomad lifestyle for
Yeah.
the years to come. And that's how I met my wife.
Nice. I think the writing was on the wall for you. I mean, the fact that you were in a motorcycle club, I don't ride a motorcycle, but I've entertained the idea sometimes. But I'm a little bit injury prone, accident prone. So it might be not the best idea. But yeah, the whole idea for me, I watched Easy Rider as a kid. The whole idea of being on a motorbike, and especially in the US, like just driving with no helmet and just being able to go pretty much anywhere by road. That's something for me that's always appealed, and the whole road movie story and that kind of thing. And
One of the best movies.
yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of driving here in Europe as well. We tend now we were talking about before traveling with kids, and I've actually found it quite a nice way to travel. Just by packing up the car here. I mean, only 2 weeks ago we drove to Barcelona, and
Oh, amazing.
yeah, and it's cool. We do it. We could do like 10 hours in a day. It's pretty crazy. But just to stop and we have lunch somewhere, or stop, have a picnic, and I don't know. I quite like that idea of traveling by your own schedule. We travel by airplanes, but sometimes I find like the whole security thing and sitting in a small seat and all these kind of things with an airline, like, kind of get to me a little bit after a while. I've sort of done the long haul travel. I will do a long haul travel again if the destination is really worth it. Gone are the days where I just used to get on a plane and not mind too much about it. But to get experiences from all over the world, I think it's super important for our learning and our evolution as a person and as people. And what I'm sort of also seeing, well, it's a big question. I'm debating this constantly in my mind. At the moment, what we're seeing in the media, exclamation marks, is a direction in Europe and in the US and in other countries is towards a more nationalistic view of the world. Now, I'm debating this, whether this is kind of like a popular story in the media, and because legacy media tends to be a little bit center or left or leftist, then perhaps they are really putting in the fear-mongering of nationalistic thoughts and really pumping social media with like racism and like overly nationalistic rhetoric, and whether that there is an undue amount of attention on this kind of thing. And in Portugal particularly, we just recently had the elections. I don't tend to follow politics too much here, but I think it's important just to keep a little bit of an eye on it. And Chega, which is supposedly the far right party here in Portugal, but perhaps the political scene here is maybe a little bit so far skewed left, that it makes that it appears like somewhere like Chega, which would probably be more towards conservatism in UK and maybe republicanism in the US, is actually, because it's so far left leaning, it's already tipped in the favor to make Chega look a little bit far right. But I had a little bit of a scan because I was like, I don't really understand how in this day and age in Portugal we can have a party which is so popular, which is thought to be racist, which is thought to be far right, which is, I don't believe it. So I went and looked online, did a bit of research what Chega is actually about, and realized that it was not, which is not far right at all, not in terms of our European history anyway.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of, I mean, you, what's your opinions and what's your family's opinions of what's going on in the US? And as a traveler and a world traveler, do you think like we should be creating borders, or do you think we should be sort of setting our cultures and being proud of our cultures, but then also welcoming people to learn about our culture? part of Podcast Portugal really is as an outsider to take my view and to get the views of guests and interviewees of their experiences and of both from outside Portugal, inside Portugal, and to share that culture and to give other English speakers a little bit of a understanding about the unique culture here and the perspective of the Portuguese people and the people who are not Portuguese that live here.
Hmm.
And I did have a question for you somewhere in there, but I don't know where it is. But what is your feeling of that as a we are basically immigrants? You are well traveled. Your wife is from Holland, so she's from another European country. What is your perspective as a world traveler, as someone who really appreciates freedom and not being able to drive your motorcycle across the border without having to fill in a bunch of paperwork and have your photo taken and all this kind of stuff? I really agree with, and it's a beautiful thing about Europe. Um, but then,
Yeah.
also I can understand it from the perspective of cultural identity. It's nice to have a culture. It's your selling point as a country, particularly when you're so reliant on tourism as Portugal is. So it's important to keep that cultural identity, but also be welcoming and sharing in it, but also the people that come to share in it don't change it, if you know what I mean. It's a real balancing act, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And totally agreed. Kind of same as you. I don't follow the politics too closely here, so but from what I've seen, it kind of seems like the rise in nationalism or popular the popularity that Chega is gaining is kind of coming from a few different angles, and I think one of it is just the crazy rise in immigration, specifically in Portugal over the past 5 years or even longer. And I think that's just due to the lax immigration policies that Portugal has. They're very welcoming of immigrants coming here. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we came here, is I can get a passport in 5 years.
Yeah.
So they're very welcoming and embracing of foreigners here. But I think because it's so popular and they're a little bit more lax on it, is it also attracts a lot of illegal immigration. And I know that's not just a problem in Portugal; it's kind of over a lot of different countries in the EU. Hence, the rise in the nationalism is, I think,
Natural
from what I
response
could,
to that, I guess.
yeah, from the light research I've done, yeah, it's just getting crazy out of hand and their perspective. And I kind of see it firsthand because I live near Martimonish in
Okay.
Oroios. And so it's primarily like a immigrant neighborhood, lots of Bangladesh, Nepalese, Indian, Chinese here in this neighborhood, which I love the diversity, especially in restaurants. Like I love Indian food, I love
Yeah, me
Chinese
too.
food.
I'm a big fan.
And so I appreciate all the multicultural diversity and everything, but there's also more crime in this neighborhood a little bit just because of the poverty aspect. A lot of immigrants that come here illegally, they don't have any money, and so they're forced to find other ways to scrape by or whatever. And so I think that's kind of one issue, is just the rise in illegal immigration. And like you said, the Portuguese people can, some of them, obviously I'm not speaking for everyone, but I just from the research I've seen online, is like some of them feel like they're kind of losing the identity and culture
Mm.
of Portugal slowly over the years, or maybe not so slowly because of how fast the immigration is happening. And then also you have the other um, angle or perspective of it, is that kind of the rise in nationalism over in the United States with the Trump administration and his whole message of America first. Like I see some of the people that belong to the Chega party saying, Portuguese people first.
Yeah,
And I think
I've even
Portuguese,
seen Europe first as well somewhere. Make Europe great again.
yeah. So I think Portuguese people, they feel gypped because of the low wages, the rise in housing costs from foreigners. And everything else, the increase in crime rates. And so I think it's just all kind of come to a head. And I think things go in cycles. So, like, you had the far left for a while. And then now that, or not the far left, but at least that's kind of some theories
pretty
I've heard. Is like
socialist.
things kind of went a little bit too far left, and with everything else that's associated with that, and now it's swinging the other way to balance it out. So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes out in the end. But as far as like keeping borders flexible and open policy, yeah, I mean, traveling and keeping an open mind and exploring other countries and cultures and just being aware of what's out there, not staying in your bubble is so crucial. And I think it's very important to kind of shape your frame and position in the world. So I think I'm all for, immigration as long as it's legal and, everything like that. So yeah, I love being able to go to each EU country and not having it be flexible. And like you say, being able to ride my motorcycle over to Spain and not having to worry about a thing. So
Yeah. I think actually a thing just popped in my head then. It's like, you know what? In life, I think sometimes, I think there's a lot in terms of criminality and safety. Like often people's freedoms have to be sacrificed because of the few that take advantage of the system. For example, I don't know what you feel about gun law, but there is probably millions of people that can own guns really responsibly, and then there's that very small proportion that'll use it for some sort of crazy reason. And therefore, everybody that uses these things responsibly has to then suffer because of the few. It's probably not the best analogy, but I'm thinking maybe we could draw that analogy with immigration. Like there'll be a proportion of people that will take advantage of lapse immigration law. They'll take advantage of it. They'll perhaps create some insecurity, or at least a feeling of insecurity within the country. And then that'll probably cause issues and ripple effect to the hundreds of thousands of people that will actually appreciate, and they'll move to a country and bring a lot like you do. You bring business, you bring, you're renting a place, you're going to try to buy a place or rent another place. You bring revenue into the country, and you're bringing ideas, you're bringing business, you're bringing, you're suddenly not making a draw on the social security or the social services. So it's the few that tend to affect the many. It's the few that take advantage that tend to affect the many who are genuinely trying to be a part of Portuguese culture. And then it's how you look at that, and how the media tends to exaggerate everything in many ways. And as soon as they run with one particular story, it tends to just get polluted onto all our different types of feeds, whether that's algorithms or whether it's believing that's what you want to see. You tend to get into your own bubble, and you're just seeing things escalate. And yeah, it's a really
yeah,
weird time we live in.
yeah. People have to be really careful with what news and how they consume their information, because, like you said, you get stuck in the bubble of your algorithm. It's like self-fulfilling. Like whatever, it's very biased. So like whatever kind of views you have and whatever type of content you consume, if you're consuming all of your news and information on like social media platforms, it's going to keep feeding you more and more of that bias.
Yeah.
And so it kind of just amplifies everything in that sense. So
Yeah.
and then you have the legacy media options. So yeah, it's hard these days, especially even with AI and deep fakes and everything else you have
Yeah.
to worry about now. So authenticity and legitimate information is a real challenge with today's society.
Yeah, it's one of my major drives to doing a podcast, because I just want to talk to people. I want to get their views on things, and I want to get understanding. I want to hear all different sides, different opinions. I mean, we live here in Alentejo. We have a little farm, and last year we live in amongst some of the big the Spanish olive farms here. And they to get the work done here, they have to employ huge huge numbers of migrant workers. And actually, in our local village, the migrant workers, there was 40 of them living in in containers, in a barn, in containers in a barn. And so our village is probably a population of 40, maybe people. So it doubled the population.
You're really out there.
Yeah. So, and it was just like 2 or 3 months whilst the olives needed trimming or picking or whatever they were doing. And then they were gone. And but in this year they didn't come because the olive production was a little bit slower, and I think they're mechanizing a little bit more. But I was talking to a friend of mine who has one of the biggest pomegranate farms in Portugal, and we were talking of this issue of migrant workers, and he said, like, the work actually picking pomegranates and working on the trees, you can earn like €2,500 per month. Now, that in Portugal is a really decent salary. It's probably double what the average is.
More than double the minimum.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so why doesn't anybody want to do this work? And he said, because it's hard. It's really hard. It's in the sun. You're outside. It's labor intensive. And, and if you go to where his area is, like the housing there's plenty of houses to buy. There's plenty of places to rent, because we're not like on the coastal towns where you're competing with people wanting to live here for the coast or wanting to buy places to rent out. So there are places in Portugal, and I think, like your experience, I think in life you have to be prepared to move to where the work is, or like our perspective, we lived in Ericeira. We were looking around to buy a place, and we realized, like, do I really want to be paying a big mortgage to live in an apartment, what we could afford? Or should we take a little bit of a gamble and go for space and buy somewhere where we can renovate, and maybe the infrastructure and surrounding area will start to improve and become a little bit more like Ericeira in 10, 20, 15 years time? So that's what we did. We went for the space, the size. We could have our own, have our own water well, solar, and all that kind of stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it was for the price of a small studio apartment. It's crazy what you could afford. Just if you look a little bit outside of the populous zones, of course they're popular for a reason. But then I realized we're only 50-minute drive to the beach here, to some of the Alentejo beaches, which are absolutely amazing, beautiful surf, much less crowded than some of the other areas of Portugal. So it's been a really good move for us, and it's not ideal. Rita still misses her apartment that looks out over the waves in Ericeira, but sometimes it's a balance, right?
It is a balance. Now, I'm super interested, or I've become super interested in like self-sustaining and like living off the grid. So I think that's really cool that you guys took the gamble and moved out there to where you can have land to grow food and your own water and solar. That's super cool. So that's awesome. Because you're like really into surfing, and I think you're also a surf coach. How has it been for you being that far away from the coast?
Well, because I lived in the Algarve, I have a bunch of clients that often go there. I have a bunch of clients that go to Ericeira, and I have a bunch of clients that have been to both and want somewhere new. So,
Cool.
I literally, because I'm so near the highway, I am prepared to like drive and do a coaching session for me. Like I said, I don't mind driving. So like an hour and 40-minute drive for me or a 2-hour drive sometime if I go to Arifana is normal for me. I'll drive, get up early in the morning, be there at sunrise, do a coaching session for 3 hours, and then drive 2 hours home. For me, yeah, that's normal. And because I don't mind to go to the Algarve, I don't mind to go to Porto Covo, I don't mind to go to Costa Caparica or Ericeira. It means I sort of expand my offering a little bit to where people can do their sessions. Which I think,
speaking of not minding driving, the roads in Portugal are pretty good in my opinion.
Exactly.
Like they're easy to drive on.
Exactly. Like here, a 2-hour drive is actually enjoyable. I put it into adaptive cruise control. I listen to a podcast, so I can be doing a little bit of research as well for other things.
Yeah, like I don't mind paying the tolls because they keep the roads in great condition.
No, exactly. Exactly my opinion. That's one of those things like I like that idea of direct taxation where you can actually see what you pay for. What you see is what you get, you know? I love that idea of like I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind to choose to pay taxes on my roads. If I can literally see that stretch of road, I can see where my money is going to and what it's doing well. Sometimes when you throw your taxes into the pool, into the ocean, you have no idea where those
Yeah,
tax dollars are being spent. Um,
that's how I felt in the U.S.
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, because you pay taxes on a state level as well as a federal level, right?
Yes, state and federal and sales tax and lots of different taxes. Although overall they're nothing compared to most countries in the EU. But I feel
Hmm.
like at least here you can see your tax dollars going somewhere more
Yeah,
in more cases.
I guess that's the benefit of having a smaller population. I mean, Portugal is tiny, so I actually wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what Portugal could really do to continue its like support of digital nomads, and how do we sort of integrate the digital nomad into the culture and almost to sort of help explain to the Portuguese people that we're here to bring ideas and here to work, here to contribute to the tax system, and we're here to rent from businesses and drive cars, and all of these kind of things. I think sometimes like this actually gets lost. That skilled immigrants, we actually bring a lot to. You need people to eat in the restaurants. You need people to spend money in the supermarkets. And if we are, and as a digital nomad, I can't remember what the visa situation is now, but I think you have to be earning fairly decent money, and that money is going to be spent in Portugal. So
Yeah,
what
that's a good question, and we should tread a little bit lightly here because I don't know if
you?
you've seen, but over the past couple of years, there has been some like protests from Portuguese citizens like against digital nomads, like wanting them to get out of the country, or because there seems to be some groups of people who blame them for the rise in housing costs, which
Okay.
and I've talked to some Portuguese friends who they think that's not true. They were kind of talking about how they're just shifting the blame when it's not the digital nomads' fault at all, hardly, for the rise in housing costs. It's the government for having poor policies and allowing things like that to happen.
Hmm.
So a lack of affordable housing, or having too many lax rules when it comes to the golden visa and people investing in real estate and then raising the rents and Airbnb and stuff like this. So in my opinion, it's not the digital nomad's fault for like the
No.
rise in housing costs. But um, I think as far as how any like digital nomad or remote worker that's coming to relocate to Portugal, they can be conscious of that and act as responsible citizens, like not burdening the system, not taking advantage, and not buying up real estate and then renting it out for exorbitant prices on Airbnb,
Yeah.
just being more responsible and conscious about that. Um, but Portugal is doing its job to stay competitive in the global market, trying to attract talent and capital to Portugal. We actually just published a video on our YouTube channel this past Sunday about the 10 different visas and how people can legally migrate to Portugal. And one of those new visas is the D8 visa, aka the remote worker digital nomad visa that was launched a couple of years ago back in 2022. So, because too many people were being bucketed into the D7 visa, which is meant more for retired people and of income. So they wanted a visa specifically to market to digital nomads, for people who are working remotely, having their income that's foreign sourced, and bringing their dollars to Portugal, like you said, spending it on anything tourism related, food, restaurants, just daily life. And
Hmm.
I think Portugal, in large part, at least Lisbon and Porto and the Algarve, depend on a lot of these tourism dollars that come in. So, and a lot of digital nomads that move here for a year because that's how long that visa lasts for, and then they can reapply and for another year, but they end up staying here.
Yeah,
So
and it actually probably equals out the seasons a little bit. So it's kind of an advantage because you don't just have this bump in the summer where everything is crazy and there's just work in the summer, and then the wintertime there's nobody here, restaurants close, there's no temporary work if you're a student or whatever. So it's kind of nice
mhm.
because it means that there's more consistency through the whole year in the seasons, and actually being here in the winter in Portugal is different, but I love it just as much as the summer for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
the winters here are pretty mild, but so totally agree with you there. So I think that there's lots of uh different visas available for people who want to come here, legally and contribute to the system and do their part. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. Portugal is doing a great job in like staying competitive and trying to attract entrepreneurs and innovation, and also trying to help the Portuguese young people to stay here because a lot of young Portuguese people after they graduate university will go and leave because they can't make a good wage or salary here. They'll go and move
mm,
to one of the more northern European countries or somewhere else to where they can double their salary
yeah,
at in whatever their chosen profession is. And then sometimes a lot of them will come back later in life, and so they're doing I know they're doing a lot of different policies to like try and keep young Portuguese people here as well. So
yeah.
I think they've realized the error of their ways, and they're trying to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, hopefully, it's gonna be not a quick fix, but it's something that's highlighted, and we do live in a time here in Portugal where there's lots of good things happening and lots of positivity and lots of flow, and the Airbnb thing was a weird one because it was a moment where Portuguese people like a grandson can turn his granny's home into something where he could actually earn some money, and some
Hmm.
good money. Yeah, in so many little towns, and Algeciras was a classic example, like the little houses there on the hill, which were not really a great place to live. Like my little house that I had, like realistically, if you wanted to live there, it would be a pain because you'd have to walk up a hill with supermarket shopping you every other day because you couldn't drive right outside the house. But as a little quaint holiday cottage for a couple of weeks, it was really nice if you're not going to have to carry supermarket shopping up the hill. Um, and I think a lot of these places they perhaps wouldn't have been developed if it wasn't for Airbnb. So it's a real difficult with the zoning and things. I think there are places where people don't really, which is not so great for living full time, which might be good areas for more for tourism. But I think it's a reflection of the whole country. I think Portugal does depend a little bit too much on the tourism industry, and like you say, I think to make more opportunities for businesses and tech companies and for Portuguese educated people that are working abroad to return, bring new ideas. I think that is.
Hmm.
I think that's going to be super important for the success of this country. Um,
Yeah, and one of the other things the government's doing is they revamped their whole NHR tax program and made the conditions and requirements to qualify for that harder. So people aren't just coming here on NHR and then taking advantage of the system in order to qualify for NHR now, or as they call it, NHR 2.0. Um, you have to actually contribute to like a local startup or an investment fund. So you actually have to participate in the local economy, which
mm.
is more binding. So I think that's actually going to help improve that aspect as well.
Yeah, it's complicated. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with all that. I moved to Portugal before Brexit, which was just
Nice.
which was complete pain for everybody else that didn't do all of their residencies and all that kind of stuff before Brexit. Ditch the plastic and the toxins. Mother's Earth dishwasher papers are made from non-toxic, eco-certified materials, so they're safer for your home, your health, your family, and the planet. No bulky plastic bottles, no waste, just clean dishes, shipped anywhere in Europe and 3 times cheaper than those toxic tabs you buy in the supermarkets. Click the link in the show notes to start saving. Speaking to a few people out here, expats, particularly in the Algarve area that have been here for a long time, they tend to find it hard to make friends with local people in Portuguese, which I found really, really surprising because I've never had that problem. Perhaps because with the surfing community and the mixed martial arts community, you're all together. So I've and also the gym and stuff. I've never really had a problem with making friends from Portugal. In fact, my partner Rita, she's Portuguese, so proof is in the pudding. But I often speak to some, perhaps a little bit more the older generation. They find it hard to feel like they're included in the local people, and I wanted to sort of ask you if you joined, because you were talking about joining Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I actually had a really good recommendation for you for Bruno Salles. He has the Icon Jiu-Jitsu in the Quicksilver Board Riders. If you go down there,
nice.
if you go down there and talk to Bruno and say you spoke to my team's dad, that's where my team started. He's really cool. He's really nice, and the guys there are a good bunch. Also, a lot of them surf as well. So, in fact, Bruno's a surf instructor as well as a jiu-jitsu black belt. But he's a super nice guy, good guy, old family from Ediceta. If you move up there, I don't know whether you will.
That'll be perfect. We're planning. I mean, even we're like house shopping right now, and we made an offer on a house. If for some reason it falls through at the bank or whatever, we're going to rent instead.
Yeah.
So, no, that's definitely appreciate the referral and connection, because I think that is one of the best ways you can make local friends in a new community. Is actually, you have to put yourself out there. It takes effort, whether and hopefully you have some hobby that enables you to do that, whether that's surfing or skateboarding or going to the gym. I think that's one of the best ways to meet new people, and hopefully locals.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely found that in living anywhere in the world, in Saudi, in here, and other places, Madagascar. Also you have your motor. If you join a motorbike club here, and I'm super interested in that as well. Because I've seen there's a lot of motorbike clubs in Portugal. You see them a lot around here. I was driving home the other day, and there was I'm sure they were a motorbike club, but it looked like they were all driving little 2-cylinder. You see the old farmer guys drive around on those tiny little motorbikes with big crates on the back.
Like the mini bikes.
Yeah, I drove past about 60, 70 of them on the road the other day, all in a big long line. It was absolutely hilarious. I'm sure it was some kind of enthusiast club.
I wonder if it's the same one that I saw last year. I did a trip to Australia, and I saw pack of about that many bikes, but they were all in these small 150s, and it was pretty funny.
It wasn't exactly Harley Davidson Club, right? It wasn't exactly Hell's Angels. It was more like, I don't know how to describe it. It was really cool. It was very Portuguese, It's like so unique.
I haven't joined any clubs yet. Not sure if I'm looking to, but I just actually bought a bike last week. It's a Yamaha
Nice.
Tenere 700. So when I lived in the States, I rode more like Harley Davidsons, but these days I'm more interested in like doing more off-road riding. So
okay, so that's what the Yamaha is. It's more, you need it for the roads here. Some of the roads have holes.
Like the T7 is like a dual sport, so I think it's a really nice balance of being able to ride on the asphalt, tarmac roads, but you can also take it through any kind of terrain. So I think it's a nice mix. So I can use the bike for dual purpose, and it's been pretty amazing. I wanted to buy a bike a long time ago, but I decided to be a responsible parent and buy a car for the family first. So
as it is. Yeah, I suppose it's quite nice to getting around Lisbon as well on a bike. It's much easier, right?
Yeah, being able to split lanes is a game changer, because you can't really do that legally in Arizona, and it's really hot in Phoenix. So being able to do that here is amazing, because there's so much traffic in the city. I actually just went to a really cool event last weekend called the Lisbon Motorcycle Film Festival.
Cool.
It's a 3-day film festival where they show all these really cool motorcycle movies at the Vintage Cinema Sao Jorge
Cool.
down in Chiado. And actually coming up in June, there's a really cool event going on in Ericeira. It's like Ericeira Customs uh event. And it's like for custom motorcycles and custom hot rod cars and stuff like that. But there's
Nice.
also like a surfing and skateboarding element to it. So that's going on in June for I think 4 days, something like that. I'm really excited about that. And when I saw that event, I was like, cool, these are my people, like
Yeah.
I'm glad that like validates my decision even more. I'm moving to Ericeira, like
Yeah.
my kind of scene.
Yeah. It's nice up there. It is beautiful. Yeah, the only reason why we left really is because of the school was really cool. There's a really nice school there for your daughter. It's like it's part private, part state sponsored. I think it's like a little Catholic school. They don't do too much of the religious stuff, but they have a nun there, and he's very sensitive. He's not too. They don't push the religion kind of thing. But it's a
What
really
was the name
nice
of
one.
the school? Because we're actually
You
trying
know,
to find one.
I don't remember the name of it. I'll have to find it for you and send it on WhatsApp. I have to ask Rita. She'll remember. I really don't remember the name of it, but it's a really nice little school. They're really good.
Cool.
Yeah, we wouldn't
What
have left.
what what made you guys move?
Literally because I wanted to. We were renting, so I had two Airbnbs down in the Algarve. I had an apartment in Lagos, and I had uh, a little house in Algezur. And just sort of managing them, and then after COVID and all this kind of stuff, it became a little bit of a headache.
Mhm.
They became a little bit less cost effective for a good way of earning money, and plus we were paying rent in Edicetta. So the idea was to literally to buy a place and to have an element to that place which we could also rent out. And it will just be something we can control and live next door and do all the cleaning. And so we bought space, we bought land, we bought farm, we bought all of the type of stuff that we wanted to have. And I've also got a little bit of a thing in the back of my head that we are so reliant on certain infrastructures, and like we had that power outage the other day. As soon as
Yeah.
something like happened, I was coaching in the Alentejo, and it literally happened whilst I was in the middle of a class, and I was with a Swiss family, and I said, guys, I'm not sure you're going to be flying back in the next couple of days. You need to maybe make some provision to stay here a little bit longer. They have a house in Amado, so they drove back from the Alentejo to Amado, and I said, maybe you need to go to the supermarket and just stock up just in case, because, who knows what's going to happen. And I was the same. I drove literally to the nearest supermarket straight away. And within a few hours of the power cut, like you couldn't use a debit card or credit card to pay for anything. You couldn't use contactless. It was cash only. So I was like, okay, cash only. So you go to the cash point. There's no cash. You can't take cash out. So it's like already it was okay. So I went to 3 different supermarkets, and luckily one of them was just starting to just not use contactless, but I managed to get a bunch of water and some staple foods just in case. But
Mhm.
I drove home, and of course we have a garden full of food, so I wasn't too worried. But I can
Mhm.
imagine if you're a family and you don't know whether the electricity is not going to come on for 2, 3, 4 days, it's not necessarily, you can deal with not having the electricity, but you can't deal with not having food, and most people don't store food, and the fridge with no electricity is not going to be keeping fresh produce. We have this all here, like my neighbor's a sheep farmer, so I've always got lamb that's fresh running around.
Yeah.
And we've got 300 lettuce, we've got garlic or onion, and, so we have all our stuff. And these kind of things is always at the back of my mind because it's uncertain times. And I think with a family, I started to see things a little bit differently, that I couldn't just live hand to mouth, and I had to be a little bit prepared for things, and to put some equity into this property to slowly develop it over time so that I can give something to my son. He's going to have a house. He's going to have land. How he wants to decide how to earn money, I don't know. But there is issues. Like the school here. We took our son out of the school.
Mm.
They tried their very best. The structure, the investment into the school, the teachers, all very good. But unfortunately, I don't know how to really say this, but some of the kids in the school come from families which struggle, and the language my team was coming home with, and with some of the actions and some of the sort of violent behaviors, we were like freaked out. So we just thought,
Yeah.
I'm not sending my kid to school to learn these things. I'm sending my kid to learn to be more positive, to learn how to be with other people. And this was completely not what I wanted him to learn. So we took him out of school. We put him in. There's one of the reasons why we're big on jiu-jitsu is because the interacting with other kids, learning discipline, learning. It's also really good for girls as well if you're thinking about your baby.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the reasons I want to join is like I can't tell my daughter to join if I'm not also in it. I would be a hypocrite. So
yeah, 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 exactly. And that's
that's
a beautiful
interesting.
community.
And totally understandable. Are you all homeschooling him now or?
Yeah, well, we're trying to do our best. He is definitely what I'd call an independent learner. So he's out doing his own thing, climbing trees, making rope swings, and then when he's in the house, he's shooting bows and arrows. And yeah, it's hard. So, like, I'm teaching him maths by sort of saying, well, if you fire 3 bows there and you've got another 3 in your quiver, how many bows,
Dynamic.
how many arrows do you have in total? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll see how he goes. Education is a strange one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Sarah has lots of different types of schools, I think, because there's so many expats in that area, whether it's like a forest school or
Yeah,
Montessori or Waldorf or the private and public, they have lots of options there. So we're pretty excited about that. But yeah, yeah, we've also considered homeschool because that kind of goes back to our family values of being able to kind of be location independent. And so homeschooling really lends itself well to that. But I know homeschooling, even though it's legal in Portugal, can be a little bit complicated or complex to navigate all the bureaucracies of that. And so we're far away from that journey, but we'll see once we get there.
yeah. How old's your daughter now?
A year and a half.
Not yet. So I think my team started at his little primary school. Maybe he was 2 years old. He started jiu-jitsu at 2. Um, and he started that school, I think, when he was 2. It's a horrible thing dropping your kid off at school. My team was fine. He didn't cry. Didn't even realize it was only till he was a little bit older when he started to decide he didn't want to go to school. And I think that's when we realized that perhaps the school environment was not such a great place for him to go, because when he was 2, 3, he loved going to school. He loved going there and playing with his friends. And um, it was only when we realized he was getting a little bit stressed at school that we sort of got to the bottom of him, like literally fighting in school. And some of the kids, yeah, he was in the class, he was 4 and some of his classmates were like 6,
Mhm.
throwing their weight around and bullying and all this kind of thing. So we had
Yeah.
to, and that's where the whole jiu-jitsu thing comes in as well. You teach your kids to be able to deal with conflict on a daily basis, and to roll around and to know what it feels like to be put in a physical situation. It's not about like necessarily winning a fight, but it's definitely your ability to stop them hurting you more, but also being comfortable in that difficult situation.
Hmm. Yeah, being able to have confidence and know how to handle conflict.
Yeah. Because most of the time, conflict, especially at that age with kids, will end up being physical, and it's just part and part of growing up. And I think the important thing is to educate kids not to create a situation where it ends up um, into a situation where it's more dangerous for the kids. So, like, it's jujitsu is controlled conflict, I guess, is what you could call it. It's conflict with respect and understanding, and a tiny little bit of violence.
Yeah, totally agree. Is your kid Still going and still enjoying it?
And he does like 4 classes a week. He does the age group 4 to 7, and he also does the age group 7 to 14 now because he's like one of the higher belts. So yeah,
Oh, nice.
he absolutely loves it. Like but just the fact that he has, I mean, and there must be like 20, 30 kids in the class. So he's just got older brothers, younger sisters. He just has a whole community, and we go and support them at the jiu-jitsu competitions, and a lot of the kids do really well there, win a lot of medals, and they just show I think for me it's nice for him to see them as like aspirational, like that's how I should be, like respectful, helping the younger kids, and training, and being disciplined, and not talking when the master is talking. And I think these are the type of old school values that sometimes I think are lost in school. Crazy to say that, but I think
I
sometimes.
totally agree. Yeah, I'm excited to get Nora in some martial art classes like that, whether it's jujitsu or some other form. So especially like, yeah, like you said, whether it's young boys or girls, like it's just developing the discipline, the respect, and the confidence is just so valuable.
Yeah, yeah, and you also got the huge advantages of the physical aspect. Like I trained a lot in the gym, and I think when I start to train a little bit more in jiu-jitsu, I notice a big difference in my fitness. I've surfed all my life, but I can surf more or less, and I don't really notice a big difference, strangely. But definitely with jiu-jitsu, I noticed that my fitness levels go up a lot more, certainly in terms of agility and flexibility, and fat cutting as well. Like I can, if I just make sure I eat pretty good, well, um,
Hmm.
I'll drop like 10 kilos of fat pretty easily over 8 weeks or whatever, especially if I'm cutting for a competition. Um, yeah, it
Yeah,
falls.
I listened to one of your recent episodes, and you were doing a cut for some competition or something.
Yeah, I got the gold medal. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's quite funny. Yeah,
Congrats.
I won. It was the European Masters. So I managed to. Well, it's actually quite funny because I was cutting weight and cutting weight and cutting weight, and then there was nobody in my category for my weight group. So I ended up fighting not the 88 kilo category. I ended up fighting in the 94 kilo category, and so
Okay,
and I
gotcha.
found out about like 2 weeks before I changed categories. And within those 2 weeks, I managed to I went up to about 92 kilos. So,
Nice.
yeah, it's really easy to put it on.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, now I can drink a beer. I can have potato chips with my steak. And man, it makes a massive difference. You put on
Oh,
weight so easily.
that sounds like heaven. I've been uh I've been in this like challenge for almost 75 days now. I'm at the tail end of it, but I've dropped let's say how many kilos? 13 kilos,
Wow, then well done.
14
Congratulations.
kilos since February. So
So
I
about
went from like,
That's quite a lot,
yeah.
actually. That's yeah. A good amount is sort of about a kilo a week, and that's what we would probably consider sustainable, if not on the edge of
Mhm.
being a little bit hard. Um,
Yeah.
but no, that's
Yeah,
that's.
it's been challenging, but I got like 10 more days to go, or
So, what are your
and then
meals? What does your meal prep look like?
I kind of eat more or less similar. I'm on like basically a whole foods diet, so just trying to avoid anything processed.
Hmm.
I allow myself like rice
Yeah.
and like sauces and stuff like that. But
Mm.
basically in the morning I'll have, I don't know, an 8 to 10 ounce steak with 2 eggs and avocado, and then in the afternoon I'll have some vegetables and like hummus. Um, or another piece of fish or something. And then in the evening, I'll have like either potatoes and rice along with another meat, like whether it's ground beef, chicken, or pork or something.
Mm.
And then some vegetable on the side, like broccoli or a salad, or just keep it real simple.
Yeah.
Try and keep it just whole foods and just lots of protein.
Yeah. And then you're
So
training, what type of training you're doing? Weight training, and how often you're doing that a week?
I train twice a day every day. So that's part of the
Wow,
challenge is there's no
crazy.
breaks, no rest days, and you have to train twice a day. So I do
What, 20
a
minutes or
45
40 minutes? 45. Wow, okay.
yeah, 45-minute session or longer in the morning at the gym, and then the second session has to be outdoors. So then I
Mhm.
go to a calisthenics gym nearby, and I
Yeah.
either do the calisthenics workouts or I run laps.
Yeah. Sprints or just easy run?
Easy running. I'm not very good at running, so I just jog.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a horrible thing. I don't run at all. I've given up running. I might do some beach sprints on the sand. I find that pretty effective, but no, the time of doing, used to do biathlons when I was younger, and yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really not into jogging. Yeah, I realize like,
it's interesting. Like, I really don't like running either, but I've kind of come to like it, but I'm still
yeah,
not good at like in the gym, I can push myself towards pain. Like I embrace it, I chase it almost. But
yeah,
when it comes to running, as
yeah,
soon as it gets painful, I'm like, screw this.
yeah. It's a funny one, but I think also if it starts to get painful when you're running, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
I think like running causes a lot of stress hormones to be released, cortisol and kind of things like that. So you have to be, if your goals are to, watch the hormone levels and things like that. Sometimes with the running, with long distance running, it can be a challenge to reduce the release of cortisol and things. So
hmm
yeah,
Yeah. Last weekend I did a 10K, and I'm trying to get to where I can do like a half marathon by the end of the year, but I
yeah.
think it would be cool to like at least run one marathon in my life, but we'll see.
Whoosh. Okay. Yeah, I can guarantee I'm never going to do a marathon, but I don't mind walking. Like I can hike. I've often done like 100-mile hikes and things like that. And um, over, spread over a couple of days, and that's something I like to do. I don't mind that. That seems to be less stressful on my body, on my hips and knees and things.
Yeah,
Even
more
if it's
sustainable for sure.
Yeah, even if I'm carrying a pack, even if I'm carrying like, I don't know, 20 kilos or something like that. I like walking. There's something deeply ancestral about walking. Everything slows down. You hear things. Your vision starts to. There is something very cool about walking for sure.
Yeah, and apparently it burns more calories than people think. Like the if you compare just walking to like jogging, of course you're going to burn more calories during a jog or a run, but even just walking for that same amount of time is like hugely beneficial to your health.
Yeah, guaranteed. And if you're walking up and down, say like the cliff footpaths here, like if you're going up a hill and then down, and then up and then down, you'll get your heart rate up pretty well.
Mhm, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. But what's the goal for the training? Why are you doing this? Just for a personal journey, and because the hard thing is you set yourself this goal, you'll reach it after the time period, and then it's really hard not to open the floodgates after that, and then to lose, because it's so hard to get all of your gains and to cut all of the unnecessary weight, and then it's really, really hard to maintain it. That's always the
Yeah.
trick, I find.
Yeah, I think the goal of this whole training was just a personal challenge.
Mm.
The challenge has a variety. It has like five or six different rules, and it's the point of the challenge is not a fitness challenge. It's more of discipline and mental toughness
Okay,
challenge, like
cool,
developing these habits. So, like
good.
the other part of the challenge is, besides working out twice a day and the diet, you're also supposed to no alcohol for 75 days. You
Hmm.
have to read 10 pages out of a book for 10
Nice.
every day. Um, and so there's a variety of different rules, and it's just like one for the commitment. Can you do all these things every day for 75 days? And it's two different workouts is like extremely inconvenient. So it's just a matter of like discipline, and so it's kind of just more of a discipline challenge for me into how far can I push myself? Can I do this? I've been wanting to do a challenge for years, just never thought I had the discipline to. But
Yeah.
now that we got the family, we got another one on the way. I
Wow,
thought now would be the
congratulations.
perfect.
And
Thank you,
how
thank
old
you.
are you? You don't mind me asking, how old are you?
No problem. I'm 39.
Okay. So yeah, 39 is good. 39 is a good age. You're going to be still able to recover pretty quickly. I'm
Yeah.
52 now. 52. So I've realized like my training since turning 50, I've sort of adapted my training, and I've actually found great benefits in not training too much, surprising to
Hmm.
say, but I've made much better gains by giving myself time to recover. Um,
Nice.
strangely, and being super, super, super careful with the diet. That to me, I've realized getting older is you must be. I don't know whether it's over time, these allergies or whatever, they get worse, or your ability to cope with the toxins or whatever's in the foods, whether it's bad food, sugars, or whatever preservatives. I think over time your ability to deal with these things gets worse. I don't know whether you get a toxic buildup in the body or whatever, but I've realized now that giving myself time to recover, giving myself the right foods, and being very, very disciplined with that, which I find very hard to be, particularly when it comes to beer, because I love to drink a beer. So
Yes, same.
I don't, yeah, man, it's a nightmare. I don't have any in the house. Like I'll go for 4 weeks, 6 weeks with not drinking a beer. But it's one of those life things which is really nice, and also wine. But luckily with wine, I get a headache, so I can't deal with that. So, um,
Yeah.
and yeah, eating. And here we have our own eggs, um, lettuce. Eggs and lettuce sounds like a really boring diet, but like that is our staple here on the farm. Eggs and lettuce and onions, garlic.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I've noticed a massive difference just eating so simply. The Portuguese diet is very simple as well. Like if you actually look into the lots of the recipes and stuff, it's very simple, very good for
That's
you.
why I love it so much. It's
Mm.
like you have your protein, pick your protein, whether that's codfish or steak or whatever, and then you put an egg on top of it, and then you have rice or potatoes on the side with some veggies. And
Yeah,
I don't know, that's why I love it about it is the simplicity.
yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's definitely a massive benefit, and I feel like getting older. I really have to watch these things, and I have to think about it and concentrate on it. I want to live a long time so that I can be around my son and keep active, doing jujitsu with him and taking him, because he's getting to the time now at 5 years old. Like he wants to go camping, he wants to go free diving and spearfishing with me. He wants to go fishing, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I do too. Am I going to be able to sleep outside in a tent in the cold? That's these things that I used to do easily when I was younger, when I was your age, and now I start to, am I going to be able to deal with that? But let's see. Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's one of my main motivations to keep training and stay fit is because yeah, I mean when my kids get to that age to where they want to do all these activities and skateboarding and surfing and all the things, I want to be able to keep up with them as much as possible.
yeah, it's good motivation for sure. Yeah, man. So that's if anyone wants to follow your journey, because one of the things that I do with the podcast is leave everything in the show notes and links to where they can follow your adventures with your family, and also if they want to get some SEO, like I recently done an audit on justinwestcoaching.com, and I realized I need to change my my website builder because they're using all types of old coding and all sorts of horrible stuff. So I'm really not performing very well in SEO anymore. And when I used to perform really, really well, partly because I think there's a lot of other coaches set up, and probably with more modern websites. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I might jump ship and I might go over to Squarespace, where I've recently done the podcastportugal.com website. I did it all on Squarespace. It seems to be pretty cool. Works quite
Nice. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I hear good things about Squarespace.
Yeah, it seems to work well. The one I did Justin West coaching on is a really old platform of Jimdo. And over time, I've noticed my rankings go down on SEO. Now that could be because more people are doing coaching, and they're using the same keywords. Because when I started, I was pretty much the only person using surf coaching as a keyword. And I think, finding a company like what you do, helping make a strategy to improve on your SEO. Because, let's face it, smaller companies, entrepreneurs and things, you can't afford to necessarily employ a full-time developer.
Exactly.
And I find that I'm always trying to do everything myself. And I think if you're spending time doing stuff that you're not very good at, then it causes you a lot of time that you could be applying elsewhere. So to find somebody like you to strategize and to give you a clear roadmap is that something that you guys do with
Well, that would be more of our agency side. So operationnation.co is the agency. But yeah, that's something that we can help with. So if we help, usually we target kind of like more SaaS companies and tech companies, or even like crypto Web3 companies. But my wife just, and she also used to help a lot of small businesses out there. So it all depends on the client and what their needs are, especially nowadays with the SEO landscape changing so much with AI. Um, it's like even harder to stay on top of it. So, but yeah, if there's anyone out there listening and a new website built, or you don't like your current one and you need it rebuilt, or you want to focus more on SEO, yeah, you can find us at operationnation.co and reach out, and we can do a free consultation to see if we'd both be a good fit.
Oh, that'd be cool. I mean, because I'm constantly getting emails on, like, I'm almost like I would probably classify them as spam. Do you want an SEO audit? And I know you can do an SEO audit like online now for free anyway with some of these platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how I found out a lot about mine. But then it's like, okay, you had an audit. Then what do you do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people out there doing it. So, but yeah, I mean, we don't really, we're not trying too hard to do like outbound marketing or anything like that. But if the right client comes along and they need help, we can evaluate. These days, we're focusing a lot more attention into the Nations Without Borders brand and trying to build up the YouTube channel and that. So that's been fun. But
yeah.
but yeah.
So tell. You can tell us. You explained a little bit about it before at the beginning of the podcast, but we can probably just briefly go over it a little bit more now, because it might be time to wrap up the podcast in a minute. But definitely just to remind everybody, the listeners, what Nations Without Borders is all about.
Yeah, so just a quick recap. Nations Without Borders is our personal brand for our family, essentially. Our last name is Nation, so just kind of a clever play on words. But
Yeah, nice.
yeah, our YouTube channel is the main source of content, and we just make videos around family travel and nomadic lifestyle with a family. But also, since we have a home base here in Portugal, we also focus on lifestyle here in Portugal, as an
Cool.
international mixed family. Our daughter was born here, so she's technically Portuguese, but
Nice. Yay.
so lifestyle here in Portugal, and all of the rest of our interests. Like we're about to go through another pregnancy and birth here in Portugal, so we'll probably do a video series on like giving birth in Portugal and healthcare. And since we're going through the process of
How
buying a
you
house, we'll probably do a series on like how to buy a house in Portugal for anyone else that's thinking
That's
about
cool.
coming here. So it's kind of a mixture between Portugal lifestyle and culture and expat life, and then also like travel for those phases when we are like traveling abroad and doing those types of things.
Great idea. These YouTube channels is such a great source of information these days, like just to get a real picture of, and a real feel of what's going on, and, whether you should take the plunge, whether you should move to Portugal, whether you should buy a house, and what it's like. Actually, I recently did a podcast interview with a really, really nice lady who talks all about giving birth in Portugal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and you should. I can't remember which episode number it is now, but yeah, if you scroll back, she talks all about the different things about childbirth in Portugal, and because she went through a similar thing, because she's Portuguese, but her husband He's from Germany, I think he was. But so she had this experience. Now she's studying to be something called a doula, which is like a childbirth advocate, something like that. Because she found like her husband was, there in the hospital, and she felt a little bit of pressure having to sort of translate everything for him, what's going on, because he felt, she was concerned about him. But really what she wanted to be focused on is just giving birth.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So, yeah. So it's a cool story. But yeah, such a good, and also so many things to do. And, in Portugal itself, I think that would be really cool to get that family perspective of, I know nearby us, we have there's a big safari park down here.
Oh, sweet.
I don't even remember I don't remember the name of it, but apparently there's like lions and zebras and something like that. Like in a big open space as well. It's not like a zoo.
Oh, nice. We'll have to check it out because my daughter's in that phase where she likes pointing out all the animals in the books, and she's learning how to make all the animal sounds.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that'll be great. So any ideas that I come up with that you guys should cover on there, I'll let you know for sure.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll also have to send that episode with the doula over to my wife. She'll be interested in that.
Yeah, childbirth in Portugal from Ileona. I can't pronounce her last name because it's not Portuguese, because she comes also from a Polish, I think, father, Wolfowitz or something like that. Super nice lady. It was a really cool interview. Great, man. Well, I think we should pretty much wrap it up near about there. What do you think?
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, for anyone that wants to look at the channel, just go to YouTube, and then our user handle on there is just Nations Without Borders. Same thing on Instagram, and you can find us. We also have a website, nationswithoutborders.com. Just give us a Google and we'll pop up.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to leave all those links in the show notes. So if anybody's listening to this on Spotify or Amazon or YouTube podcasts or Apple podcasts, you can just go into the show notes, scroll down, and you'll find the links there in the show notes, and they'll take you directly to Everything Nation, the nation there. All right.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. It was great talking to you, and nice to finally meet you. Appreciate it.
Cool, man. Great. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal, signing out. Thank you to all the listeners. Over and out. Simple, secure currency transfers from once-in-a-lifetime property purchase of your dreams to everyday expenses. Currencies Direct helps you save time and money on international transfers. Rated excellent on Trustpilot with over 17,000 positive reviews. Spend like a local with their multi-currency Mastercard. Tap the link in the show notes to get started.
All the things I can learn with that machine. I need some fuel, I need a monster now. I'm the last to come, the cloud, won't you?